The year 2020 is, as you may have noticed, a different year in many ways. I think most of us has taken us time to consider what really is most important in life. I myself decided to take a step back when it came to fishing. During the last 2-3 years or so, I've been fishing a lot in the river, trying to catch as many salmon and sea trouts as possible. And in that way you can say I've been successful, because I've really catched a lot of fish. But there's been an unexpected downside on this, a luxury problem you might say. Catching fish isn't quite that fun anymore. Instead, each fish has sort of been transformed into an anonymous number on the fixture scoreboard, counting number 23, number 24, and so on, just trying to keep up with my quantity goal of catching, say at least one fish a day. Clearing this goal gave me satisfaction in the beginning, but in the end, it took some of the fun out of fishing. Yeah, I sure have a competitive mindset, and I like to challenge myself by setting targets and then try to reach them. If I make it, it normally feels good. But in this case, the quest for an imaginary goal becomes more important than enjoying every moment as it comes. After thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that by focusing on quantity I totally missed the point. So I decided to make a change. I will no longer set any quantity goal for my fishing. Fly fishing for salmon is not a matter of competing. Fishing is a much greater experience, with roots back in the hunting and gardening society and the origin of man. Well, back then it was a matter of life and death. Nowadays, I reckon, it's just a matter of adding more quality into life. Don't misunderstand me, I always want to catch fish every time I fish. But if I don't, there are other values in fishing that are equally important, like the nature experience, the sensation of doing a perfect fly cast, meeting with other people, or just taking a breath and feeling life is good. And who cannot help being enchanted by this? A quiet, foggy morning, and the whole day is laying ahead of me with lots of opportunities. Maybe this would be the day when I catch the fish of my dreams. Or maybe not. The weather is always a topic of discussion when salmon fishing, and this year, more than ever, it felt like almost every day was sunny. Not the best condition when fishing in the middle of the day, but, in the contrary, the evenings offered a pale, hopeful light in the shadow of the setting sun, making this a perfect moment to catch fish. But because it rained sometimes, and here it came a little inconvenient. I just waded out the fish from the middle of pool 9 when the sky suddenly opened up. It came as a bit of a surprise. The forecast was no rain. But as always, I had a spare rain jacket with me in my back pocket of my fly vest. Luckily, I would have been soaked in a few seconds otherwise, but no, I actually didn't get wet at all. Fantastic clothes they make nowadays. One of the highlights for me during the season is fishing with my eldest son Martin. He's a very skilled fisherman and a real source of inspiration. And who cannot help but be affected by his joy and enthusiasm? Just look at his clips. This year he caught his first sea trout in the river, and he also managed to catch one of the biggest salmons I've ever seen. 115 centimeters of pure ugliness. Totally crazy. Thanks Martin for joining me. Well, life goes on. I see the new generation fishing the river with great enthusiasm, and I rejoice with them and their parents. They are the lucky ones. Fishing is a hobby that spans generations for sure. As a result of my changes, I fish less hours this year, especially in the autumn when I almost completely ignore in early morning fishing. It's just tiring, cold, and not very productive. Instead I claim fishing in the dark. I haven't done that for some years now, partly because of my hip problems, but also because of the fact that I can't shoot good video clips when it's pitch black. Little to my surprise, I managed to catch some fish during the dark hours. It's definitely something else than catching fish during daylight. I prefer when I can see what I'm doing, but nothing beats when the fish takes a fly when you're out in the river and folded by darkness. Try it, and you're sure to understand what I mean. Ever since this happened in 2015, during the fresh run salmon fishing, I've been wondering if this salmon actually took the fly or if I accidentally mishooked the fish. The line broke after a short while, and my feeling was relief because, when it happened, I was totally convinced that I had mishooked the salmon. But the more I think about it, the more I tend to lean to the conclusion that the salmon did bite, but the video quality is not good enough to reveal what really happened. This year though, it all came clear to me when I shot this video clip. Bad casting, yes, but look at the big sea trout. I didn't scare that fish to surf it. It was definitely going for the fly. And this was not a one-time event. Every now and then I catch fish without being really sure how it happened. And in those cases, the action cam becomes very handy. Damn! That would have been something to tell the grandchildren. I wanted to be like this, of course. I'm placing the fly just behind the boulder where the fish is likely to be. And bam! The fish bite. Experience and an excellent fly cast. A perfect combination when it all comes together. Yes, that's sometimes the case, but once or twice every season it looks like this. I'm pulling out more line, going for another cast, but before I have time to cast the fish bites. And honestly, hand on heart, surely this must occasionally happen, even for you. I'm showing this clip because I want to draw the attention to how changes in the way we present fishing the fly can trigger the fish to bite. This conclusion may not be breaking news, but I think most of us tend to fall back in old routines and fish the way we always do. If I just refer to myself, I'm definitely doing so. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. We do it for a reason. It works. But, and here's my point, maybe we should give other ways of fly fishing more time. The absolute most common way to fish for salmon in the Mörrum River is to use a subfly. But to me, these clips really is an eye-opener. Frankly, my fishing for the fresh run salmon has been far from successful in recent years, so why not break the pattern and try something new? I really have nothing to lose. And who knows, maybe I challenge myself next year to experiment a little more with other fly fishing techniques, such as the riffling hitch, letting the fly dance on the surface in faster pulls, and maybe also use some kind of popper or propeller fly in slower pulls to create a pattern on the surface in order to attract the salmon. In these clips, speeding up seems to be the answer, but it actually can be the other way around. Sometimes the solution is just to place the fly in the current and holding it there for a while without making any moves. The current will do the job and give the fly an attractive movement, and if there is fish nearby, the chances are good it will fall for the temptation. In any case, all ideas are good except for the bad ones, and if you don't try to break patterns, you will not develop, neither as a fisherman or a human being. Who knows, I may strike gold next year. Or, should I say, silver. Despite the fact that I this year chose to fish fewer hours in the river than before, I still managed to catch some nice fish. Here's a pool with deeper water close to the east river bank and a very shallow water where I'm standing. The current actually goes in semicircles, so I may continue fishing down to the right. I don't know how many times I fished here over the years without catching anything, but you know how it is. Sometimes you like a place without really being able to explain why. The feeling, however, has always been that if I just crack the code, I will be able to catch lots of fish here. Well, time will tell if I was right or wrong. Regardless, it really felt great to finally manage to catch fish in this pool. It's a nice sea trout. I chose to land it standing downstream and letting the fish come to me instead of vice versa. It's shallow alright, but the pebbles are loose and slippery and I'm not young anymore. I don't want to chase the fish. Works for me. And back it goes. Okay, you may have some objections here saying, this is not a good place for contemplation, and maybe you're right. But fishing is not only finding yourself, it's also about catching fish. And for a guy like me, who have my home pool right next to the central bridge in Stockholm, this place sure feels like out in the country. Yeah, it may look crazy, but it's actually possible to catch sea trout in the heart of Stockholm. And this is really as central as it gets in the capital of Sweden. The parliament and the royal castle is to the left, the old town is across the water, the central bridge to my right, and if I turn around I see the central station, the city hall and downtown Stockholm. If you be around, give it a shot. Best fishing in November and April. Another sunny day in Mörrum. Not the weather I want when fishing for salmon, but there's not much I can do about it. I just have to accept it and take it from there. So I placed myself in the shadow and the fly in the sun. It actually should have been the other way around, but it sure worked out well. There are a lot of boulders, tree branches and turbulent water where I'm standing, so I'm moving downstream where it's easier to land the fish. Like a nice silvery fish. Still hard to tell if it's a salmon, a sea trout, or possibly even a rainbow trout. But maybe this graffiti painting holds the answer. It might be a sign from higher powers. Time will tell, if I don't lose the fish. I'm just keeping the rod up, letting the fish to get tired. In the end, it turned out to be a very nice rainbow trout, close to 4 kilo. I gently guided it through some obstacle and landed it on the shore. For once I decided to harvest the fish from the river, first one since 2016. Not only because rainbow trout taste excellent, but also because they are an invasive species in the Baltic Sea and therefore not wanted in the Mörrum River. Even though they haven't yet established in Swedish waters, you never know, and better safe than sorry. This fish might have been a fugitive from the fish farm. I'm on Strömmarna, in English the streams, a collective name for a section in the river that includes pool 8 to 11, and one of my absolute favorite fishing grounds, even though very few fish actually are caught here during the season. The water is fast and turbulent and the pool is rather shallow, with many potential hotspots. It's not easy. You have to be rather good at wading, and in my case I make it, only thanks to my wading stuff. The fish never stays long on Strömmarna, most of them just pass through. The normal catch here is a minor sea trout in the range of 50 to 60 centimeters, but on rare occasions you might find yourself with a much bigger fish in the other end of the line. I have two choices here how to land the fish. I can wade over to the river bank to my right, or I can stay out in the river, trying to find some backwater behind a boulder. In the end, I chose to stay out in the river. I could tell by the caudal fin that it's a big salmon. And fighting a big salmon in this turbulent water means it's going to take a little longer to land the fish, as the fish can use the current to its advantage. I'm in for some serious work here, and as long as I can't move the fish from the strong current, the fight will continue. So I'm holding the pressure up as much as I can, bending the rod to its limit. After a while, I began to feel that the fight has taken its toll. My right arm was aching, and I had to shake it in order to get rid of the lactic acid before I was able to keep up with the salmon again. Slowly I began to gain the upper hand, but it was far from over. Every time I got the salmon within reach, he somehow managed to find strength and swim out in the current again. I guess that every one of us fight the big fish recognized the situation. We were so close, but yet still so far away to end the fight. I'm not in total control, and when the salmon tries to break away, I have to give it some line by winding the reel backwards. I don't want the hook to loosen, but I'm still eager to keep the pressure up on the fish. It's always a balancing act between how much pressure you dare to put on the fish and what your gears can take. But the faster you can land it, the faster it can recover, and that's of great importance if we intend to release the fish. So I give it the best I can, but the salmon don't cooperate. Despite my efforts to land the fish, he's still struggling hard, and I was starting to get a little frustrated. The fight has been going on for a while, and it would be really disappointing to lose the fish now, so I'm becoming a little bit more cautious. I think this is a wise strategy. There are so many things that can go wrong when landing a fish. Eventually someone has to give in. Could be me, could be the salmon, or maybe the hook or my gears. In this case, however, it was the salmon. There it is, a big female salmon. A great catch in any part of the river, of course, but especially here at Strömmarna, where every fish counts. It sure was a magnificent salmon, and after a little recovery, it was more than keen to get back out in the river again to continue its journey to the spawning grounds upstream. Although many things were different this strange year, at least one thing remained the same, as my last fly cast of the year in the river happened to be an exact copy of my last cast 2019. Just look at it. It was really crazy. I was thinking when I waded out in the river that if this had been last year, then this would have been a really good opportunity. But as I hadn't had a single bite here this year, I wasn't too hopeful. It actually was a big surprise when the fish took the fly. My first priority was to get to the river bank, so initially I didn't put so much pressure on the fish. This usually results in the fish staying calm, just as I hadn't realized or wanted to accept that it actually been hooked. It felt like a decent fish, maybe not like the one on Strömmarna, but not far from. At some point, however, you had to start fighting the salmon, and as soon as I reached the shore I increased the pressure, which made the fish aware of the situation, and of course, it made a long rush in an attempt to break free. I let it rush. To do something else would have been stupid, but as soon as it slowed down I pushed again. This was repeated a few times, but soon the rushes became shorter and the fish came closer and closer. But it's still not close enough for me to get it. Instead it pulled out in the river and rolled around in the final push to break free. I myself was just trying to keep a cool head and not to do anything hasty. And as usual, the last part of the fight takes a little longer than wanted. After all, the fish is fighting for his life, and even if the current is not strong right here, it's there alright, and the salmon is not slow to exploit every opportunity. Finally, I got it where I wanted, and I could easily land the fish on the shore. It's another female salmon, and an amazing way to end the season. I can get used to this tradition for sure. It just couldn't get any better. And back out in the river again. I hope to be back soon with more fishing action. Until then, stay strong, take care.